Good morning, friends. It's Dr. Bill here. This morning I posted a picture with three little boys who had different heights. And I want you to think of that as kids with different abilities. The problem is they were trying to look over the front of a ship and see the horizon ahead of them, but they were all standing on the same sized box. So my lesson in that post was the importance of understanding that one size does not fit all. That if all we use is our canned cookie cutter class campus curriculum with every single student, regardless of ability or grade level, then we're not going to help this kind of student, the visual, verbal, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. So let me explain that briefly here for those who haven't seen me train in person before. If this is the floor of your classroom or your home, wherever you're learning, sometimes the floor has carpet. When that carpet is dirty, you don't sweep it, you vacuum it. The first syllable of vacuum is vac. And so instead of the C, I'm going to use K. The lowest level of your classroom is going to be the kids who are at the VAC level. And we have to make sure that we differentiate our instruction to help the V visual, V verbal, A auditory, so they can not just hear, but actually be listening, not just look, but actually be seeing, saying what they're seeing, even if it's the capitalization or punctuation, if that's their struggle. And of course, the kinesthetic hands on, I have to touch it, taste it, kids. So I'm going to show you how to do the plan and process of ECR in English. And I'll also do it in Spanish for those of you who request it here in the comments section, because I have the same plan. And when you finish this video, I want you to try and teach it to your students. And it's going to be amazing to you, amazing opinion, that your kids will remember for a lifetime what sometimes they can't even remember even until they get out of the classroom. All right. So I have two hands here. The first thing they're going to see is a passage that has an introduction, sorry, an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Some sort of genre. We don't know which one. It doesn't matter. They can give us all the ones that are on the blueprint. Sometimes they'll just ask us about certain paragraphs. Okay. So does that paragraph have a topic sentence? If so, it helps us with the main, look at my M there, idea of that paragraph. And so you can put a couple of paragraphs together to figure out the context of each section, each p, p portion. So far we have p, p passage, p, p paragraph. Okay. And we will notice that there's going to be a p, p prompt. Okay. When you see the page with 5 bullets followed by 4 bullets, that's the prompt page for ECR. Okay. The topic will be at the top or near the top of the page. Normally, it's going to say the word explain if it's informative or expository. The two informative expository prompts for third and seventh asked whether or not should students be involved in participatory budgeting, why or why not. And the third grade one was, should people be rewarded for recycling, why or why not. So there's going to be a topic, and so you have to understand, is it which one W? Is it some who, what, when, where, why, or some other who, what, when, where, or why? Is it a who, what, when, where, why? How is the relationship between the boy and the pair of pants? And it doesn't start with a W, but it ends with one. And how does that relationship develop throughout the poem? So that's going to be the and. Another one is those uh, opinion argumentative pieces. They're going to say why or why not about something, and they have to decide what's their opinion going to be. And so if I make an O with these two hands, they have to decide after reading both passages, in most cases, both portions, uh, what opinion do I believe the most, or more importantly, which one do I understand the most? And then they'll have to make a claim about the first idea or the second one. So they have to make their opinion, which is also called a claim about one side or the other. All right. Now, the last one, the last couple are, what is something, how is something similar to something? How are two people similar? How are their actions similar to each other? How is the result or the effect similar? Or how is something different than something else? So those are the different topics that your kids can get, and you have to kind of study different topics because there's five that you're going to see in my folder a little bit. Then your kids might, I'm going to put on a hat. And so here I'm going to say hat, hair, hook, whatever you write first to get the reader's attention. Notice that my idea is down here. My hook can be something for my middle to higher students that I write first. So we need a central idea, a controlling idea, a thesis statement, or a claim, my opinion based on what I understand. Keep in mind that as part of the process for your eighth graders, well, sixth grade has to at least identify the counter claim, and high school has to identify and refute. Identify and refute. Two things that have to happen. The counter claim in order to get the best score. Okay. So the next part, once they've understood the topic, they want to go straight to their central idea control, and that's wrong. They have to first say, based on this topic, which evidence, examples can I use that will support support whatever they're asking me about in the topic. Okay? Evidence, examples. And the reason I have my fingers like this is ev the sorry, evidence. 1, 2, 4. People always tell the students they have to have exactly this amount of evidence, regardless of who you are or what your ability is. No, depending on the ability of your students or what's being asked about in the topic, you can have them go look for anywhere between 1 to 4 pieces of evidence. They just have to remember that they have to explain. Have my wings spread sideways like a plane. And so if I have one piece of evidence, I have to explain it. Okay. So when you are doing reading, when you infer, you're reading between the lines. When you're doing explaining, your evidence is there, 1 to 4 pieces of evidence, and it's basically saying, okay, based on um, if this is my my hook, my lead, my attention getter, and my central idea rolled into one, and I have 1 to 4 pieces of evidence, then I want to be able to explain, which is to type between the lines, to write between the lines. And so just remind your kids that explaining a piece of evidence can be 1 sentence for some kids, it can be 2, it can be 3. You just make sure they say in their own words, this is what this piece of evidence means in my interpretation of the text and how it relates to both the topic and the idea that I chose to write about. So that's evidence examples from the text, 1 to 4 pieces of evidence. And then however many you decide to do, you're going to explain something in the second bullet of development for a 3 says to use very vivid, precise word choices, every sentence, that all the transitions are effectively utilized. And so I'm going to call that explode, to take that sentence and take it to another level by choosing more effective word choices, because it says you can do that, and that affects the quality of the depth of your development. Okay. The next part is you have to make sure you don't give the reader whiplash. Reader's whiplash is when the reader's trying to enjoy your essay, and right in the middle of a thought, the student abruptly stops, either because he or she ran out of time, because they didn't know time management, or they got tired, or they just had no idea what to write. That means I'm going to stop my feet twice. There's no ending. And the reason I like doing ending with my shoes is because they have laces that you tie everything together. Tie, T, topic. I, idea, regardless of whether it's a central, a controlling, a thesis, or a claim, or opinion argumentative. The evidence examples, also E. The explaining that you do, the exploding that you do, the ending. So all of that spells TIE. Topic, idea, evidence, examples, explain, explode, end. And the only thing that's left is editing. When you finish, think about that last letter of the alphabet. Don't just rush, push submit, and you're done. Go back through there, either sentence by sentence if you don't have endurance, or once you finish the whole thing, kind of rewind your mind and go back and read the entire text and verbalize the capitalization, the punctuation, or do some sort of kinesthetic movements, which I can get into more for those of you who are having kids still struggling with capitalization, punctuation. I have some really amazing lessons to help with that. Okay. So, with all that in mind, I just used my body, which will be present on the test, to come up with ideas. And so, remember that before we even get to the process, we're going to see a passage with a bunch of paragraphs or stanzas or scenes or something. And then we're going to have to decide what's the purpose. Is it expository? Is it argumentative, informative, expository, opinion argumentative? Or for sixth grade through 10th grade, is it correspondence? Now, the correspondence grade is just writing, it's just writing a letter in the form of informative expository or opinion argumentative, and by addressing somebody, addressing a certain person. The one I posted this past week was a letter to the principal explaining why or why not that students should be required to do homework on the evenings, weekends, or holidays. Okay, so what is the prompt? What is the prompt? Prompt. The topic, not the wow. Which one W? Are they asking a who, what, when, where, why? Is it two W's? Who, what, when, where, why, and another who, what, when, where, why? Is it a two-part prompt? Number three, is it asking for opinion argumentative? Do they want you to say why or why not? Are they comparing two W's in a passage or in two passages? How is this who, what, when, where, why similar to this other who, what, when, where? That's number four. And number five, how is this who, what, when, where, why different than the other two? And so then when we get to the introduction, what's your wow? If you want to wow the reader, you can do that because it says for introductions, okay, they're effective. It's different than an introduction that's just present. So if we're trying to get twos and threes subjectively, what's your hat? What's your hook? What's your hair? What's your lead? What's your attention getter? Whatever you want to call it. And then you're going to need to follow that with a clear central idea statement, elementary, controlling idea, middle school, thesis, high school, claim, opinion, everybody. And then when you get to the body, what are your evidence examples from the text? You can talk about where they're at. What lines can you find that evidence on? That's called the location. What scene or scene? What stanza or stanzas? Which sentence or sentences? Which section or sections? And which paragraph or paragraphs? And so you got to make sure you either have the evidence that you can paraphrase or summarize, or that you can cite it with quotations with exact words. Okay. And then so if we say this, each evidence example explained and exploded, here's the explain and the explode part. So you can see this why in the body of a human. Why did you choose that idea or that opinion in your brain about the topic. Okay. And so you'll notice the outline in yellow, that's going to be based on evidence. Why did you feel that evidence was relevant? And so explaining and exploding is what I call GPS, getting pretty specific. I want to know exactly what you mean. Don't be vague. Don't be general, but specific. And so that's where a lot of kids are not getting the threes because they have a lot of evidence, which is just from the text, but not a lot of explaining, which is coming from their head, their interpretation, their ability to type or read between the lines, using what I call the 8 W's: the who, what, when, where, why, which, how, wow. Who, what, when, where, why, which, how, wow. And so I've already done 14 different samples for you on the why we should or should not have homework. And what I did was I only had one sentence about the topic. In most cases, I had one sentence about the student idea. I only used one piece of evidence in the body. I only explained it with one sentence. And I had one sentence to end the essay. And then hopefully the editing that we can do with capitalization, usage, punctuation, spelling, or sentence boundaries such as run-ons and fragments, or when we add, remove, replace, or move something, changing the content around, hopefully we'll have the basic structure to get at least a 1 or a 2. But if you want to get a 2 or a 3, then you probably want to be able to say, okay, I'm going to make sure my topic and my idea are addressed, and I might have another sentence that's the hook. I might use 1 to 4 pieces of evidence, depending on what they're asking me. So I might have 4 yellow monkeys. I might explain EXP with 2 or 3, 4, or 5 sentences, depending on my ability and my grade level. We might spend more time explaining, and we want to transition between the ideas. So think of if your uh, shoes are your ending with the laces that tie everything together, then your socks are your transition to the ending. In conclusion, if that's the only thing your kids can think of, but there's a lot, like 20 different ways to end an essay. So that's basically everything that I said with the visual, verbal, auditory, kinesthetic method. Okay. So passage, purpose, prompt, topic, the wows, which type of prompt, what's the hook, hat, care, attention getter, the idea, the topic, the idea, the evidence, with or without quotes, its location, explaining it, and ending it either by restating with some repeating of things you've written, rephrasing, saying it in a slightly different way, or reflecting, going to a higher level to make your end conclusion effective with a reflection. Okay, so that's basically, in a nutshell, what I recommend. This is all based specifically on the TEA scoring guides and rubrics for the different purposes of writing. And if I were to do that with your students one time, I would then be able to touch certain parts of my body. I want you to think, I'm not going to tell you what were the P's, the P's that go with the palm? What was the T? What was the hat, the hair that comes above the eye? What were the eyes called? What was this E that we need one, two, four of, or one, two, four of? What does this E mean? What does this E mean? And with my feet, what does that E mean? And finally, when I'm done, take time to do this E, editing, revising. Make the paper better with conventions and content. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching this slightly longer video. I just wanted to show you how to make a lesson more back for your kids who have different ability levels.